All right, so thanks everyone for joining us. We had another episode of the Deals for Dentists podcast, and today we're joined by Dr. Cory Glenn. He is the VP of Technology from Blue Sky Bio, and on Deals for Dentists, Blue Sky Bio has a promo offer of if you buy any dental implant starter package, you will receive an additional $300 off of any discount. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Glenn, and
Yeah, man.
Pleasure to have you.
Well, I appreciate you asking me. Thanks, man.
And you're zooming in from Winchester, Tennessee?
Yep, Winchester, Tennessee, the great metropolis and guided surgery capital of the world. So,
Well, I first met you. I was at the Blue Sky Bio Academy I want to say about 6 years ago down in Miami. And I had just gotten my little Cell Robux printer, which I still use today.
yep.
And it's, I mean, I can't even believe how much I've gotten out of that little beast,
Yeah.
how much money I've saved and how many guides I've printed. But I went down to the Blue Sky Bio Academy, and I'd already placed about 750 implants prior to that freehand.
Right.
And I wanted to go guided, and there was a few things that were happening that made it more affordable. Blue Sky Bio, Blue Sky Plan was one of them. And I watched on Dental Town, these amazing threads from Blue Sky Plan, and kind of watched it evolve. And then ultimately, I was able to implement it in my office and offer it to my patients for a very affordable price.
Yeah, that Dental Town's the same way I found out about it. There's a guy named Michael Ravens who was one of the very early adopters of it, and man, it was so clunky back then, and I was just, I'd experienced guided, wanted to do it. There's no way I was paying the cost. So I followed his stuff and pestered him with a bunch of questions, and finally, got the hang of it. And then it's kind of developed into what it is now, where it's so easy nowadays comparatively to what it was.
And it's so affordable. I used to go to these lectures, and I'd watch these amazing cases, and I'd walk out of there, kind of feeling bad because I couldn't afford to do this amazing work with guided surgery back then. It just wasn't accessible, and you had to buy these really expensive kits and softwares, and the stress of placing implants freehand was, you don't realize it until you go guided how much stress there was placing implants freehand.
Yeah.
Now I do a guided implant case in 40 minutes, and
Right.
I do all the planning beforehand, and it's so much less stress, and the patients are happy, and it's more efficient. They come out better. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, Blue Sky Bio, you're the VP of technology. How did that happen? How did you become this guy making videos, on the internet of your, your technology, to becoming the VP of technology to a company like Blue Sky Bio?
Yeah. Well, first of all, that's a made up title. Basically when they hired me and I had to start reaching out to manufacturers or people that I was trying to develop something, if you don't have some kind of title, they'll just not even return it. So Sheldon, one of the owners, was just like, well, just make something up. And I thought, well, okay, I'll be VP of technology. And, but what I really do there is, yes, I'm in a lot of the technology development, coming up with new software features, new workflows, new products, bringing things to development, and then just clinical customer service and support, and then software support too. So I kind of do a whole bunch of stuff, but yeah, I guess that's what it falls under. But as far as how that came about, there was an infamous thread on Dental Town where, Armin Mirzayan, he was one of the guys that started Serac Doctors, and he's probably at the meeting that you were at down in Miami. But, I didn't know Armin, and Armin's, been the guy that for the last 15 years, if you came into his office for a prophy, you were getting a cone beam, and, you were going to leave his office glowing with radiation. But he's been on the guided surgery bandwagon for a long time. And, I got out of residency. I was trained freehand. For the first I don't know, 5, 6 years of my career, did everything freehand. And I just didn't see, I saw the value, but I did not see that it justified the cost. Like you're just talking about, there was a time when for a, single tooth number 19 implant, your guide was going to be $400. I mean, that makes no sense to me in a low income area, especially when I wasn't having bad outcomes. I would have cases that weren't ideal, but I'd change a little thing here or there, but I wasn't having failures or anything like that. So I just didn't see how it made sense. And then Armin makes this very public bet with me on Dentaltown when I finally purchased a cone beam. And the bet was, hey, I bet within the first 20 people you scan that previously you placed the implants on freehand, you're going to find some of them perfed, right? And I was feeling confident. So I said, sure, I'll take that bet. And I won the bet, I'd like to say. But I did get on to about number 24 or 5 and had one that is definitely still in my hall of shame. Immediate placement, thin ridge, and the apex of the tooth I was removing was out the buccal. So I made my osteotomy in the bone, but I cranked the implant in and it followed path of least resistance out the root apex. And so it integrated and it was fine and everything, but I did see that one. I already won the bet. I wasn't going to say a thing until he reached out just one night randomly on Facebook and said, hey man, just checking in about those perfs. And I thought, should I show this? And against my better judgment, I did. And within about 10 seconds, there was a thread on Dentaltown called Guided Surgery Slaps Cory Glenn Senselessly Silly or something ridiculous like that. And it got, thousands of views and all this stuff. It was like the greatest marketing for Armin ever because he had a guide service, it was like $200 for guides. So he did ask permission if he could post it. And I said, yeah, you can, but you've got to give me so many free cases of guided surgery because I'd still never tried a true CT guided stent at that point. So got it. And man, the first case I did, I was just like, oh, okay, I get it now. It wasn't about necessarily that the implant was in a better position or anything like that. It was just so dadgum fast and much, much easier. And so I kind of saw the value, but I still didn't see how it could be justified by the price. And that kind of sent me looking for, how could I do this and it not cost me an arm and a leg? And that led me to Michael Raven's thread on Dentaltown about Blue Sky Plan and learned to use that. And then once I get into something, I typically jump in both feet and just go nuts on it. So started doing every case guided, was just posting cases and stuff on Dentaltown and Facebook and things. And that turned into teaching. Armin asked if I would teach a guided surgery course with him. And, I think the first one that we did, he still gives me a hard time about, he paid my flight and expenses and like $5,000 to come out and teach this course. And there were like 3 people there, he definitely went in the hole on that first one, but eventually those did catch fire though. And we started, having really big crowds and selling out, and it became really financially productive. So started doing more of that and was just practicing, starting to teach more, and then got I kind of started going through this period where I was having a lot of back pain. I was really tired all the time. I was just kind of miserable, and I just assumed it was burnout. I was doing too much. I was not sleeping enough for sure. Wasn't watching my health. I was all teeth all the time and kind of at the expense of everything else. So I remember being in the office one day and I'm doing an extraction and my hand just kind of locked up around the forceps and I could not get it undone. And I thought, well, okay, I got to go to the doctor now. So the cramp and the back pain, I made an appointment, and the doctor basically agreed that you're fat and you're not sleeping and all this. So that's what you're going to feel like. So did blood work, didn't think much about it. Cramp went away, went back to practicing, even though everything was still hurting. And then he called me a few days later, right as I was heading to lunch. And he was just like, hey man, I'm sorry to call and tell you this on the phone, but got your blood work back. And man, I don't know what it is, but it looks really bad. You basically your white blood cells are non-existent. Your platelets are incredibly low. Your everything's low. It's called Pancytopenia. And I don't know what's causing it, but you need to go and get a bone marrow biopsy because whatever's causing this is serious. So I was just like completely blindsided by that, and immediately went to Google and, started thinking, asking Dr. Google what was wrong with me. And there was all this huge list of stuff that most of which would kill you, leukemias and all this stuff. And then like iron deficiency. I was really rooting for that iron deficiency, but didn't turn out to be the case. So went and got the bone marrow biopsy. Um, and I'm skipping a lot of, I'm sure we'll get to it, but, had major breakdown, just felt like, man, here I am potentially about to die and wishing I could do a lot of things differently and all that kind of stuff. But got the call the day after Christmas. It did end up being AML leukemia, they had told me initially, and once again to Google. And I think at my age, from what I remember, there was about a 30% chance of being alive in 5 years. So it was a very eye-opening experience. And I had to leave that very day to go to Nashville and start treatment at Sarah Cannon Cancer Center. And then, it was several days of thinking that and trying to wrestle with this idea that, I might not be around for my kids. And, do I have all my ducks in a row for if I am gone? And then when I finally saw the actual treating doctor, he came in, he said, well, we've subtyped it and you've got APL leukemia. It's a very rare type. It used to be the most deadly form. And we've now figured out a treatment regimen that is 90% effective. And in all likelihood, you're in a low risk category. So in all likelihood, after chemo, you're going to be totally fine. So it was just this up and down and all this kind of stuff. And that was a huge relief, obviously, at least about, what was I going to live through this, but still had all these other concerns. What am I going to do for keeping my practice alive? And, disability doesn't kick in for 3 months. What am I going to do in that time? Is this going to kill my teaching and all that stuff? And so, I had all these real eerie kind of God moments throughout treatment and this whole experience. But one of them was my sister had come to visit, and it's just us in the hospital room. I couldn't leave my hospital floor because I had no immune system at that point. And it was like being in COVID before COVID, masks everywhere. Everyone couldn't talk to me unless they had a mask and all this stuff. But she was asking me, she was like, so what are you going to do with your practice? I mean, how are you going to make ends meet? And I just remember saying, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to go under, it's middle of the year. It's not like you can get a new grad to come to Podunk, Tennessee and keep this practice alive. And even if they did, they won't have my, skill set or practice philosophy and all this kind of thing. And, it was just kind of accepting the fact that I was going to go under. And literally no more got the words out of my mouth when the phone rang. And it was Sheldon Lerner, who's one of the owners of Blue Sky Bio. We had talked briefly once or twice. I was, I guess, on his radar from posting all the stuff and teaching, but we didn't have like any big relationship. But he knew I used Blue Sky and he knew I understood the software well. And so he just randomly got my number and called me up and said, hey, listen, we saw your thread about what you're going through. We want to help you out, and, wanted to know if you'd be interested in taking customer service calls and emails for us. We'll pay you, I think it was like $6,000 a month or something, which that's not dentistry money, but it's a lot, for being able to sit in the bed and do it. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this is going on. And took him up on the offer because at that point, Blue Sky was growing very quickly, but they were still relatively small. And Sheldon and Albert were literally taking all the customer service clinical calls themselves. And they desperately wanted to unload that from their plate. So I took those on, and for the next 8 months while I was doing chemo, that was my job. Basically, I couldn't do dentistry. I was still having all the back pain and the exhaustion, but I could sit in the bed and play on the computer and do that stuff. So started doing that. And then after chemo, I was all fired up. I was ready to go back to practice and went back, started out doing half days, with the thought that, hey, all these back problems and problems you're experiencing were just related to the cancer and the chemo. So I was excited that once that was over, I was going to be able to be full bore again, and was doing half days. And I was just still having horrible back problems and things like that. and, tried that for several months. And I gave up the blue sky position because I was going to be back in practice. And man, first I couldn't do half days. So I cut back and I was doing just a few patients a day. And then it became an hour a day until eventually I was just like, man, I can't do this. I would see a patient and do a couple of crowns and a filling, and my back was hurting so bad I was needing to take narcotics. So that's not a good scenario to be in. So I had to go back on disability and put things on hold again. And when I did that, Sheldon was like, well, hey, we would love to have you back and do what you were doing again, and potentially see that grow into other positions. And so that's the really long answer of how I've ended up with this. Obviously I did end up having to sell my practice because the back pain still has never gotten any better. So I'm full-time now with Blue Sky Bio in all that tech development stuff and customer service, and also do my teaching and stuff kind of independently still on the side.
So you were literally in the hospital when Dr. Lerner called you, and you didn't know what you were going to be doing, and the phone rang and he was offering you a position.
Yeah, and it was literally after I had just spoken the words that how I was going to go broke, basically. So
Unbelievable.
that one, the one other that was just too cool not to share was, even after I got this position, it was still up in there. What do you do with your practice? Because staff has to be paid. I did not have business overhead insurance, and we were talking about it, and this nurse walks in and says, actually, you know what? It's been so long now, I've twisted the story. I've got different people and stuff. It was my friend Mike that was there when the phone rang with Sheldon. The second time was when my sister was there, and she was asking what I was going to do with the practice. And I said, I don't know. There's no new grads, blah, blah, blah. Well, this nurse comes in, and I hadn't seen her yet, but she worked there. And she says, hey, I know this is a really strange question, but are you the Dr. Glenn that posts on Dental Town? And I said, yeah. I mean, how would you know that? And she said, well, this is going to seem really weird, but my boyfriend is a dentist, and he's on Dental Town a lot. He follows a lot of the stuff you do, and he said you were being treated at Sarah Cannon. So I looked up, and sure enough, you're on the floor here where I work. And so she was one of my cancer nurses. And so I just thought that was crazy enough, and then went on to say, kind of jokingly, well, he doesn't need a job, does he? And she says, well, he might. He's really not happy with the associateship he's in. And it turned out this guy had done a residency, placed tons of implants, did third molars, sedation, all that kind of stuff. And he ended up coming and just visiting with me in the hospital, and I offered him the position, and he took it, and he ended up running my practice for basically about 2 years. And not only kept pace, but actually grew the practice in that time. Which was just insane. And so, just another one of those things. Here I am, poor pitiful me, and God drops something in my lap like that. Just, I don't believe in much coincidence. So that was pretty crazy. But
What hospital and what room was that? Because we all need to go there, and
yeah,
that is unbelievable.
yeah.
So
Sarah
now,
Cannon Cancer Institute. I don't remember the room, but yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Now, before your diagnosis and your pain, were you just cranking on all cylinders? Did you love dentistry? Did you love everything you were doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of dentists have this problem about, they really hate dentistry and blah blah blah. And granted, we all have aspects of it we don't like. That was not me. I loved it. I mean, I was eat up with it. It was my full-time job and my main hobby. So even when I wasn't in the office doing dentistry, I was on the computer doing something dentistry related, figuring out guided workflows, trying to, figure out other tech stuff. And so, yeah, it was definitely something I was very much into. And again, that's why I thought it was just a matter of me overdoing it, of why I felt that way, because, I was overdoing it, spending too much time just on teeth, not enough on exercise and mental health and all that kind of stuff. ended up not being the case. It was the cancer, but nonetheless, yeah, I was pretty bummed to not be able to do dentistry. So that blue sky job kind of scratched that itch. And, I was bummed to have to eventually sell my practice too. But, I'm very fortunate that all that was kind of starting out at that point, because once I couldn't do clinical dentistry, I kind of doubled down on, all the tech learning and going back to work for Blue Sky. So that's opened a lot of opportunities. All things being equal, I would rather still be in clinical practice, because it bums me out to come up with these cool workflows and then have to have other clinicians try them for me. I loved being able to just have ideas and then a patient or a practice full of patients that I could just try it. But again, the alternative is being dead. So I'm not going to complain too much.
That is true. I remember one of your videos, and actually, I think one of the really cool things about Blue Sky was their videos. Their
Yep.
videos were so easy to follow. And before I went to the Blue Sky Academy, I had already watched all the videos. I had learned the software. I think I was one of the earlier adopters, because I
Right.
actually had Michael Saltzman help me on the phone to get my first license set up, so I could use the software. Um, but the videos were awesome. And I remember one of the videos you said, this is kind of a big deal. And you took a CT scan of a model. And that was one of the first, major, I think, steps for me, in that
Right.
okay, I can do this. I don't need a digital scanner. I
Yeah.
can take an impression and take a CT scan of a model, and I can do this. So that really was a big deal,
Yeah, that
because
was Rick Ferguson is actually who, at least to my knowledge, is who first figured that out. And that was a big deal to me too, because I had a CERAC, but CERAC's bad about locking things down. At that time, you couldn't export your STLs. So to be able to just take a stone model and get your STL by just cone beam scanning that was a big deal.
yeah, so one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think dentists can get stuck in that, that little bubble, where they're doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that leads to burnout. Whereas you were into CEREC, you were doing all of these, digital things you had going on. So, to me, that would make me look forward to going to work every day as well.
Yeah.
If I was just doing the same thing over and over, like a hamster on a wheel, I would not look forward to going to work as much.
Right.
But when we changed from polyvinyl impressions to getting a digital scanner, that was like this amazing change for me, and I enjoy doing crown preps every day because I just love using the scanner.
Right.
Same thing with digital, my digital workflow with my guides. I love doing the guides, and it makes doing implants so much less stressful and fun. So I
Yep.
look forward to doing it. I'd
Yeah.
rather do.
Howard Ferran, I owe Dentaltown a lot for, whatever I've done in my career, but I remember he came and spoke to our study club. And one of the things he mentioned, we were talking about, does CERAC make sense financially? And honestly, I think from a purely financial perspective, it doesn't, given all the other alternatives there are. But one of the things he said kind of stuck in my memory. He said that if this piece of technology is going to make you run stoplights to get to work in the morning,
Mhm.
then it doesn't really matter what the cost is. It's worth you
Yeah.
getting. Say it adds one more year to your career because you're going to enjoy it and want to keep up more. Well, then, what's a dentist's 1 year income in relation to the cost of a CERAC? It's kind of a drop in the bucket. So I'm always about trying to find the cheapest, most affordable way, but I'm real enough to also realize that, hey, for some people, having it all wrapped up in a nice little bow like CERAC, if that adds to their enjoyment of things, knock yourself out. That's great. There's a lot of value in having that.
It's so true. Now, Blue Sky, what's your process over there? Because when I go to that shop now
Mhm.
tab, there's like 29 things that pop up on the left
Yeah.
hand side. I mean, and there's even endo now. I mean, there's so many things that Blue Sky offers. Initially, it was probably just the planning software and the implants and the guides, but now you've continually added more and more things that Blue Sky offers to dentists. What's the process over there? And I know you're heavy into the digital, dentures, and I even saw digital teeth. What's your process over there? How do you guys come up with the next, like, what's going to be that next 30th thing on that
Yeah.
shopping list?
Well, I mean, kind of, Sheldon and Albert, the two owners they're both dentists. Albert's a oral surgeon, Sheldon's a periodontist. They both share that philosophy of trying to make things affordable, not only for the dentist, but hopefully that gets transferred to the patient, and trying to make it more accessible to everyone. So I really clicked with that idea that, you don't have to charge outrageous prices for this stuff. And, they're just of the mindset that anything and everything that we can sell that would uh, contribute to dentistry in that way, that we want to offer that. And so, they started out 20 years ago, and it was just basically a Straumann compatible tissue level implant. And then they started adding more implant lines, and then, motors and hand pieces. And then when, the software, and that's about when I came on, and then it snowballed. I was wanting to do denture software, so made a denture module. Well, if you do that, then it makes sense to sell all the denture related products. And then 3D printing became such a big thing that we started selling printers. And initially it was that Cell Robox that you talked about. And now there's like 6 or 7 different printers that we offer. And then it was CT scans, then intraoral scanners. And we're not a company that tries to make a huge margin on every sale. In fact, there's a lot of items I can think of that they're purely just a pass-through deal. We're kind of doing what your website does. We're connecting the consumer to the company that makes the product, but we'll sell it even for very little margin, because if you can get it all in one place, it makes more sense. And plus, if you buy it from us, we've got the opportunity to throw in freebies like, hey, here's so many implants and a kit. The goal is to get them to be a customer of Blue Sky, that for everything they can get from us, that they eventually are going to. And so, yeah, that's just continued to grow. When COVID hit, the sales just plummeted because no one's working, no one's doing implants. And we kind of went searching, okay, well, now infection control is a big deal. So how can we help dentists in that? And we found out that the South Koreans were using hypochlorous acid. You remember those, when they were going around in those suits fogging the streets and stuff? They were just fogging with hypochlorous acid. So Albert finds this little company that makes a unit to produce that. And we started selling that. And, basically this unit's like $200, and it'll make gallons a day of this solution, which is totally harmless to your equipment. You can use it in the mouth, as implant irrigation, and it's 100 times more deadly to bacteria and viruses than straight up bleach. So, just another example about wherever there's an opportunity, the mindset of the company is, okay, how can we get in on that and help the dentists and the patients doing that? So bottom line, we've got about a 6-year plan for world domination. So we'll probably buy Amazon next year, and I think we'll control the internet the following year. So we'll get there. It just takes time.
It's all going to lead through
Yeah.
BSB, right?
Yeah.
Because I did notice that early on in the COVID situation that Blue Sky was an early adopter of selling PPE, which for
Exactly, yeah.
an implant digital company to be doing that is I think pretty proactive, because there was a need for it. So why not? If there's a need for it, why not sell it?
Right.
Even though you're a digital implant company. So what do you think is next? Like, what's going to be the next big thing that you're focusing on? Is it the printing side, or?
Well, yeah, all of that. I mean, anything within the realm of digital, in the next year or so, you'll see some massive improvements and new additions to Blue Sky Plan. We're getting more and more into the ortho market. We're getting more and more into just the straight up restorative market now. because so many of these things are converging. For example, if you do this giant 5 surface filling and then you're going to sit there for an hour trying to make it halfway look like a tooth, why would you do that when you could just scan it real quick and then design this restoration in Blue Sky Plan? And then just as of a few weeks ago, now we have resins that are approved for permanent use as crowns, as fillings, inlays, all that kind of stuff in the mouth. So now you could simply design it, print it, it'll have absolutely perfect anatomy and occlusion and everything, and then bond that thing in. You could almost just prep and walk away if you have EFDAs, and it's all assistant driven and getting better results. So the ortho, the restorative, dentures will continue to improve. There'll still be improvements in guided surgery, but man, really, that's the one area where we're kind of so far ahead that not a lot needs to be done right there. So not as much there, although some. And again, I just think we'll continue to see as new technologies and new approaches to treatment come along. We're going to be right there in the middle of it.
And yeah, I remember, with the Blue Sky Plan, the merge of the the STL to the scan was what was the most difficult part for me. And now it's just this automatic function. I don't even think twice about it.
Right.
It's so great. And that's all, just through, the updates of your software. It's not like I had to go out and get a new scanner or a new, software.
Yeah.
It's just, through an update. So
yeah, a lot of that is because we are a small company. So, we're nimble. If you're a Nobel or a Straumann and you have shareholders and stuff, like, to do the tiniest little thing has to go through a bazillion people and get all their input, and how will this affect the stocks and all this. We just don't have those concerns. So, that was an area where, when you took my course, we probably spent a fourth of the course just focused on how do you stitch this and how do you know for sure it's accurate. And because that was such a hindrance to making it more widespread, we just focused in, okay, how do we automate this and make it automatic? And again, just being a small, nimble company, we were able to do that.
yeah, I remember, my first patient, when I got back from Miami, I had them running to the machine with alginate like dripping out of their mouth. I had these fiduciary markers,
Yeah.
And it was still such a a stressful thing to do the merge.
Yeah, those were the good old days.
Did I read that you ran completely out of air while scuba diving at 130 feet deep?
I did, yeah. That was one of my 9 lives I've used up. I'm down to about a third of a life left. I nearly died last week as well, but yeah, that was one of my stupider moments. I did the class in college to get certified, and we did all our classes in the Olympic pool, and then we went and did our checkout dive at a lake in Arkansas, and then I was always at the lake. I was really big into spearfishing, and you do that at like 20 feet. And so, I could go down there on a tank of air and stay all day virtually, literally for probably 3.5 hours, and it was no problem. And my very first time to go to the ocean scuba diving, we went out of Panama City and went way out to this wreck in like 120 something foot of water. And so here I am, very first time in the ocean, and I'm not just, on a 20-foot coral reef, it's 120 feet deep. And I'm not using my spear gun that's this big. I've got one that's like 6 foot long. I was trying to do too much and I'd never dove that deep. And so I still am telling myself that I got that nitrogen narcosis, basically where when you get real deep, you can kind of get this drunk sensation and you lose focus and all that. I think that's what happened, because I don't generally consider myself to be this dumb, but man, we got down to about 80 feet and I just immediately, you're supposed to stay with your buddy, which is my cousin. I just swam off, did my own thing, and was off at the very bottom under this giant freighter ship. And I was looking under some rock and I was about to shoot this fish, and I sucked in and I was like, man, that's kind of tight. And took another breath and my air was gone. I looked at my gauge and I sobered up real quick then. And I was flat out of air at 120 feet. So do you know much, or do you dive?
I did a similar thing where I
Okay.
got the certification in dental school. I went to school down in Fort Lauderdale, but that was about
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So, if you're diving, first of all, the volume of air when you're that deep, every breath is probably 10 times as much air as what it would be at 20 feet. And then beyond that, if you run out, you can't just swim up, because if you do, you'll get the bends and die from that. So you've got to do decompression stops, probably 15 minutes worth of stops on the way up to get up safely. And I mean, here I was flat out at the bottom of the ocean, staring death in the face if I do nothing, and death if I go up. And man, I just sobered up real quick, and I swam as hard as I could to my cousin, who was, I don't know, 40 yards away. And by the time I got him, I was not in a good place. And, I'm doing the out of air sign and grabbed his extra regulator. We start going up. And then because of the decompression stops, I ran 3 additional people out of their air on the way up. And so, like, the whole dive boat is all sharing regulators to try and get up safely. And man, it was dumb. And yeah, so cheated death there.
Yeah, they say that you're not supposed to go faster than the bubbles. Is that one of
Well,
the?
it's not even that. I mean, yeah, if you hold your breath and you go up, even from like the bottom of a 20-foot pool, you can explode your lungs, which is a bad day.
Mhm.
But it's not so much that. It's the nitrogen dissolves into your blood, and if you come up too quickly, it's like opening a can of a soft drink. It all fizzes out,
Mhm.
and you get nitrogen bubbles in your blood, and that'll kill you. So you basically have to stop at like 50 foot and wait for 5 minutes, and then you got to go up to 20 feet and stay for 3 or 4 minutes, because you're just letting that fizz kind of settle in to your blood so that you don't get those bubbles. And so that was the big kicker. Not so much that I, I was it was basically that if I'd have gone up, I was going to get the bends. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that is quite the story.
Yeah.
Um, so, what about yourself and your courses? Are you still having your courses? Is it all virtual now, or do you still have hands-on courses?
Yeah. It's, who knows what will come, but my plan is to start the live courses back up in January. This year has been a huge bust on in-person courses, just because there's so many unknowns, and even now that we know more, there's still a lot of people just hesitant to travel. So I think I did a course in March, and then the only one I've done since then was in Utah. And what we've tried to do now is offer it in person, or give the option to remote in and just take it virtually. And then this most recent one, the advanced full arch course, guided course that me and Danny Doming do, we actually had it professionally videoed so that we could just sell that for someone that just wants to take it at any random time. So we're building a website. It's Digital Dental Masters. It's not live yet, but the plan is to kind of professionally video all of the courses that I do, and we'll put them up available for purchase there, in addition to lots of other stuff. I'm making a mesh mixer course, and all these restorative lectures that I used to give, which I don't get to do dentistry anymore, so those have kind of just been sitting there. I'm going to just give those and put them online. We're just trying to pivot and create some more options other than just the in-person courses. But with all that said, I do intend to start back in January.
Can I shoot some guns? I
Oh
saw one of your
yeah.
videos, and I saw someone shooting a gun, and I'm like, this looks like the greatest course
Yeah.
ever. Um, is that is that your house where you hold the course?
No, so after when I sold my practice, I had kind of this liquid income that I was trying to figure out what to do with, and decided to put about half in investments, and the other half I wasn't even looking for anything at the time, but I just thought, well, what the heck? I want to go look at this piece of land that's for sale, and went and checked it out. It was 280 acres, had a nice house on it, waterfalls and caves and creeks and streams and all this kind of stuff, and mountains and pastures. It was just like my dream place, and talked my wife into putting the other half of that money into this land as an investment. And I didn't even know what I was getting at the time. I have to say now that if I knew what I was getting, I'd have probably paid double for it, because I mean, it is my happy place. But for the courses, I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I was getting tired of all these trips to Nashville to fly out to this place or the other. So I thought, what if I just tried to give those courses here? And yeah, it's going to be tough to get to. And, it's not a big city, but I think we could make it a really unique course with kind of the outside of class activities. So we actually do the courses, at least the ones that I do here. We give the courses out at that farm. So, it's farm animals, we got mules and chickens and livestock and all this stuff. And right off the back porch, there's a 220-yard gun range. So uh, basically all these city slickers that come in from these places have never done anything remotely like this, and we'll take them riding on the ATV and shoot guns and all this kind of stuff. So that's a good time. There's been a lot of foreign trained dentists who've come in that may have never even touched a gun because it's illegal in those countries or whatever. So it's always a good time to let them get their hands on it. There's this one girl from Australia. She was an assistant, came, she'd never touched a gun. And man, she absolutely loved it. I gave her the AR-15 with the full clip, and she just emptied the clip in about 10 seconds. She thought it was the greatest thing ever. It was taking videos of herself. And so, yeah, anyway, it's a unique course experience, and I'll see what COVID does, but my long range goal was to build a bunch of cabins on the property so that not only could you come and kind of experience the nature and do this course in a very different location, but you could even stay on site. So my plan is to build those cabins and even like a specific lecture facility, so I don't have to keep moving couches out of the living room in the house.
Sounds like camp. Like you learn some
Yeah.
digital technology, and I want to shoot some guns. I grew up in a neurotic Jewish household in Massachusetts, so I wasn't even allowed a BB gun. So
Yeah.
I need to
Oh,
shoot some
yeah.
guns. But
You need to come visit when we do another course, because that's, the courses are never the same. This stuff moves so fast that I don't think
yeah,
I've ever given the same course twice. But um, yeah, you could come on out and you probably can't eat a deer that you killed, but you could at least shoot some guns. Do you follow kosher meals and everything?
oh no,
No. Okay.
I'm what you call Jewish. I
Okay.
I yeah, I'm not religious at all. So
Okay.
in fact, uh, there's way more Christmas stuff in my house right now because my wife is not Jewish, and we do have a menorah, but that's
Okay.
about it. The rest is all Christmas stuff. And you know what? Christmas is awesome. I grew up in a Jewish household, and we didn't really do much for Christmas. It is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Cory Glenn, the VP of Technology from Blue Sky Bio, which apparently anyone can be the VP of Technology for any company.
You
It's
could be
just,
that.
yeah, I'm the VP of 8 Sarah Lane, where I live.
Yeah.
So again, on Deals for Dentists, they're offering a promo of buy any dental implant starter package, and you get an additional $300 discount. So thanks so much for joining us and sharing your story. That was great. Let's
Yeah,
be in
absolutely.
touch.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks, Cory. Take care.
All right. Bye.